Ahoy, I'm the D&D Hunter, definitely not a mind flayer in disguise. I'm just a regular human man like most of you watching are, with a regular human man's mustache. Did you know that a new Dungeons & Dragons book released this week? It wasn't really that well marketed in my opinion, but it's here. The release sort of crept up on me as it's only been a month since the last Dungeons & Dragons books released, which were Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun, and Adventures in Faerun. I made two videos on those books diving deep into what's into them. You can check them out in the link in my bio if you're interested. This video is going to be just like those ones. I picked up my copy of the latest D&D book, which I guess I should mention is called Dungeons & Dragons Eberron Forge of the Artificer. I will be going through this book entirely, showing you what you can expect if you were to get this book. I won't show everything, of course, I won't spoil the adventures within, but I will be going through each chapter and discussing things that stood out to me, what I liked, what I didn't like, and some noticeable changes that I noticed here. So that being said, this is a book review video, so let's jump into it. Eberron Forge of the Artificer is a source book focusing on expanding the world of Eberron through its most iconic class, which is the Artificer. The book blends lore, player options, magical technology, and campaign tools that highlight the setting's signature themes of magic tech, industry espionage, and the aftermaths of the war. Now, this is a rules expansion, as it says on the cover right here, so it can be used both for players and dungeon masters. There's things in this book for both. This book is very thin, only 112 pages long actually. This is the thinnest book released for a 5.5 edition or 2024 edition or 1D&D edition or whatever this new rule set of Dungeons & Dragons is called. It comes in two covers. I went with this main cover here by artist Michael Brossard. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But the variant cover is cool as well. This is what it looks like right here. It's by artist Patrick Ganas. I think I'm pronouncing that name right. Now this book says rule expansion on the cover right off the bat, but the first page actually explains that this can act as an expansion to Eberron Rising from the Last War, which is a 5th edition D&D book. But it can also be its own thing. You don't need Rising from the Last War to be able to use this book, but if you have gone through Eberron Rising of the Last War, you can have a bit of knowledge going into this book. You can expand that adventure a lot more. There's a lot of stuff from that book that you can kind of dig into from here. But since not everybody has read Rising of the Last War, I'll be making this video review in the perspective of being its own thing. So I won't be referencing that last book unless this book specifically is referencing it. Now this book is 6 chapters long. Chapter 1 is on the Artificer class. Chapter 2 is on character options. Chapter 3 is on Bastions in Cover. Chapter 4 is a full adventure. Chapter 5 is another full adventure. Chapter 6 is yet another full adventure here. And Chapter 7 is on airships. There are little things spread out throughout this book, such as stat blocks for new monsters and things that you can fight here, along with some magic items here and there, but they don't have specific chapters based on them. They're just kind of mentioned in places that make most sense, or not make the most sense, which I'll get into later here. Before that, throughout the introduction, we talk a lot about the Draconic Prophecy. Every line of the prophecy is symbolic and it's open to kind of have your own idea of what it is. For example, the Gorgon's Breath might refer to an actual Gorgon to the house Cannith and its symbol, or even the creation of the Warforge. When fire create could be about the Forge, rebirth from destruction, or a motion turned towards creation from the last war. It's kind of up to you to decide what this prophecy means, whether it's being the dungeon master deciding for the story or what a player thinks when they hear that prophecy there. One of the prophecies is 5 shall rise to cause a dragon's fall. It's usually spoken as the player character bringing down a major antagonist, but for dungeon masters, this book suggests starting with the final line, decide which dragon, either literal or symbolic, will fall at the end of your campaign. Then you can build from there. Anyways, it just kind of helps you kind of start a campaign with a prophecy. But let's get into chapter 1 here, which is the new Artificer. Eberron Forge of the Artificer brings the Artificer fully into the updated 2024 rule set, polishing it into the definite version of this class. This book is all about making the Artificer feel like the beating heart of Eberron's magical industry, and the revision leans hard on that theme. The Artificer is presented as a flexible, invention-driven half-caster who blends creativity, craftsmanship, and arcane engineering. In this updated version, the class is cleaner, smoother to play, and more kind of for the player who wants to build around magical tinkering. The core fantasy is still up front and center, which is infusing magic into tools, weapons, and gear. inventing things on the fly, and using arcane science to reshape the battlefield. But the revised version tightens this class identity into emphasizing invention as a repeatable and reliable resource, not just like a mechanic that you can just use when the time comes. Class features are streamlined. Spellcasting is more initiative based, and you get earlier access to the parts of the class that make you actually feel like an artificer for your infusions, your gadgets, and your signature creations right at level 1. The subclass updates reinforce this direction, whether you're a battlesmith, an alchemist, an armorer, a cartographer, or an artillerist. Each specialization feels more focused on what makes that archetype unique. Your construct defenders hit harder, your potions matter earlier, your arcane armor is more versatile, and your eldritch cannons feel like an extension to your character rather than an afterthought. And because it's Eberron, this book also doubles down on the lore behind the class, connecting the Artificer to the Dragonmarked houses, the last ward's magical arms race, and the world's booming industry of mage rights, airships, and elemental bindings. Overall, this version is smoother and more thematic and fun to play, especially at low levels here. There's a lot more to do now. The Artificer feels fully realized in both mechanics and storytelling. Now, as far as differences between this version and the last version go, there is a lot of little tweaks here and there. Pretty much every single level has something tweaked, whether it's completely changed, brand new, or just adjusted. I don't want to go through all that here. I want to continue going through this book in general, but I put a link in the description below of a Reddit thread I found of someone that did go over the differences here. So if you want to see the exact differences, you can check out this thread. Besides that, I'm just going to move on because there's still a lot more in the small book here that I want to get to besides just focusing on this class here. It's very cool though. I like the upgrades. I like the differences. And yeah, just check out that thread if you're interested. Now that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is character options, and we're going to start off by Dragonmarks. Dragonmarks are like magic tattoos that appear on the skin of certain bloodlines in Eberron. They're not tattoos, though, specifically. The book actually mentions that they're not tattoos. They're more like living symbols of arcane power that awaken in people tied to one of the great Dragonmarked houses. Each Dragonmark grants unique abilities tied to a theme, such as healing, shadows, storm, travel, creation, detection, so on and so forth. Each tied to a different house, though, and a different magical talent. In the world of Eberron, these marks are big business. You will get attention if you have this mark. They give the house what they're known for on things like medicine or transportation. And elemental bindings, of course. If you've ever ridden on an airship or sent a magical message or brought a healing potion into Eberron, the Dragonmark houses was likely involved because there's a lot of these houses. Now, Dragonmarks are things from the last book. They're not new here, but what is new with Dragonmarks this time around? Dragonmarks have been reworked for this book, and the biggest change is that they're no longer tied to your species. Instead, they're now set on Dragonmark feats that any character can take. The magic they grant works more smoothly too. You can use your own spell slots to cast the spells that your mark provides, and few marks have their spells listed adjusted in the new 2024 rules. On top of that, the book adds 13 new general feats that represent a more powerful greater mark, plus feats that boost your mark's strength. And thanks again to the 2024 ritual rules, any ritual spell a Dragonmark gives, you can now be cast as a ritual automatically. So in short, Dragonmarks are more flexible, they're more accessible, and they scale much better with the new rule set. But one thing about this book that I find really kind of dumb about it is that this book goes over all of these Dragonmarks right away. You get all their info right here, but then after this, the actual stats are after we talk about the upcoming species and other things in the back of this chapter here. So if you want to know about the Dragonmarks and the stats and what they do, you have to go back and forth between the start and the end of this chapter, skipping through the stuff in between. It's just kind of a weird order to put things here. It's like if the monster manual had everything you know about dragons on this page, but you gotta flip through near the back of the book past the oozes and zombies and the other stat blocks to get the actual dragon stat blocks. It's weirdly organized. I feel like if you want to talk about the Dragonmarks here, the stats should be after, not at the end of the chapter. I don't know. I found it a little confusing and annoying on the first read. Because yeah, before we get to the actual what these Dragonmarks do, we gotta go through the background summary. This book introduces 17 total backgrounds, all with the updated 2024 format. 14 of them represent heirs of the Dragonmark houses, and instead of giving the origin feats, they grant a Dragonmark feat at level 1. This is the only way to start the game with a Dragonmark. Any other background still allows you to take a Dragonmark feat later when you gain a normal feat choice. There's also a house agent background for characters who want to be affiliated without actually manifesting a mark, so you don't have to be a part of this marked family in order to get one. Beyond the house-related options, 2 additional backgrounds are here: Archaeologist and Inquisitive. These tie directly into the campaign style featured later in this book, but these two backgrounds are essentially the only ones that will likely ever be used in campaigns outside Eberron or without a dragon mark in your campaign. I do really like the Inquisitive background if you ever want to play a detective-like character. Next is species. We get 5 returning Dungeons & Dragons species now updated for the new rule set. Something I was hoping that the last Forgotten Realms book would have, but they didn't, and oh well, you know, it's cool that they're here. At least we finally have them here. Before I tell you what these species are, what's changed with these new and improved character options? Well, I guess you could say a lot. In 5th edition, your race was what was determined a lot of what your overall character sheet would come from, and what filled it out was determined by your race. But now, with these new rules, it's mostly background based. So you can be a halfling and still have good strength if your background is something like a soldier. So now, the species mostly focus on overall aesthetic purposes and appearance, like what your height can be, and a few little tweaks and adjustments here and there. You're no longer tied to your stats for your species here, although some of them still get a few specific skill checks. Our first returning species is actually a great example of this, which is the Changeling. Changeling are shapeshifters who can alter their appearance at will. They're known for fluid identities and slipping seamlessly into different roles within society. So despite not getting overall skill stats here, the Changeling still has the ability to essentially cast this guy's self on themselves at any time, because that's what that species is all about. Next up is Kalashtar. Kalashtar are a fusion of mortals and spirits from the plane of dreams. They possess strong psychic abilities, calm demeanors, and a constant interconnection to their guiding spirit. There's a few art in this book showing the Kalashtar, and they have that spirit kind of like attached to their back. It reminds me sort of like of Persona, if you've ever played that, where the characters will have their persona kind of following them around behind them as almost spirit-like, like Joker and Arsene. The third species is Koravar. This one I did not expect to see ever again in D&D, because Koravar are half-elves, native to Corvair. They formed a distinct culture rather than being defined by mixed heritage, but yeah, that's right, half-elves have returned. After no longer being in the player's handbook, this is sort of like an official way to bring them back. Though it does say that they prefer not to be called half-elves, but I mean, they are half-elves. They just have created their own identity as Corvair. They're a blend of human and elven grace and are deeply rooted in Eberron's history and the Dragonmark houses. But if you're not playing a campaign in Eberron and you want to be a half-elf using the 2024 rule set, Koravar is, I mean, that's what you got to play here, and bam, half-elves are back. Next is Shifter. Shifters are descendants of lycanthropes who can temporarily tap into their bestial nature. In moments of stress or adrenaline, they physically shift. A shifter shifting is a skill exclusive to the species if you want to play them. Think of the shifter as children of werewolves or whatever you want. This is also the first 2024 rule set furry species that's playable so far, besides Dragonborn if you count that. I do wonder if D&D will ever bring every furry species back into this. I feel like Tabaxi is so popular, but we haven't seen any signs of them returning yet. So maybe a shifter can replace Tabaxi or replace a Loxodon or any of the other furry species, at least for now, if you want to stick specifically to the 2024 species. I know you can still play a Tabaxi in 2024 D&D, but if you want to keep it using the only species in the 2024 rule set, a shifter is kind of the furry species for you Zootopia fans out there. And the last returning species is one of my all-time favorites in D&D in general out of all of them, Warforged. Warforged are sentient constructs created for war, but are now seeking purpose in peacetime. They are living beings of wood, metal, and stone, each developing unique personalities beyond their original design. One of my favorite species of all time. My current big bad evil guy in my current campaign is a Warforged, so I kind of have a bias towards these little construct guys, but if you ever want to play basically a robot in D&D without breaking the immersion too much, Warforged is how you do it. Chapter 3 is Bastions in Eberron. This chapter expands the Dungeon Master's Guide Bastion rules, giving Eberron characters new ways to build bases of operation that actually fit in the setting's tech and tone. These are mobile bastions. Unlike normal bastions, which sit in a fixed location, Eberron lets characters build moving bases, like a ship or a lightning rail car or an airship. To make a mobile bastion work, it needs two things: a vehicle body and a helm of some sort. A facility to put that little chair that operates the thing. It's kind of like how spelljammers work for those that are familiar with those rules. If multiple characters merge their bastions into one huge vehicle, each character must supply the same facility. If they all issue the Empower order together, the vehicle moves. With enough hirelings, this shared bastion can even travel 24 hours a day in rotating shifts. While traveling, a mobile bastion still faces normal travel challenges, such as encounter difficulties, hazards, or setbacks that might temporarily disable the facility, including the engine, so you gotta keep an eye on that. Players and dungeon masters will work together to design a bastion map that fits inside the chosen vehicle and may adjust room sizes as needed. The one trade-off is no defense walls on a mobile bastion. You are constantly on the move, and it's hard to defend that. There's also special facilities. This chapter introduces a list of new Eberron-themed special facilities that you can put into your own bastion, whether it's in Eberron or the Forgotten Realms. This includes rooms like at level 5 you can have a Dragonmark outpost in your bastion. Level 13 you can have an Artificer's Forge in here, which has a lot of cool stuff that I'm not going to spoil right here. And one of the coolest ones, also level 13, you can have a museum in your bastion. You can literally live in a museum. Every night would be a night at the museum. It's perfect. Like if I was in a poor forever DM, and I was a player in a long-running campaign where I had my bastion, my number one goal, whether I'm an artificer or a barbarian, would be to live in a museum and have that as my main bastion. Check out the art for the museum area here. Like this is so cool. You can collect trophies throughout your campaign and have them all on display here for people to visit and look at, or maybe it's a secret museum that, at night they come to life. Fresh idea from yours truly. Our next few chapters are adventures set in Eberron. It's kind of cool. These adventures have different paths that you can take in situations depending on your character level. So these adventures actually can be run if you're level 1, 5, 10, even 20. Any level works for these adventures, and it's worth noting that combat can and will happen here, but it's never the focus for any of these adventures. I'm not going to spoil what happens in these adventures, but I'm going to give you a summary of all three. The first is called Sharn Inquisitives. This adventure is all about playing detective in a towering city known as Sharn. Inquisitives here are part of a private eye, part cop, part undercover agent. These cases range from classic noir crimes and murders, missing persons, blackmail and smuggling, to the more fantastical dangers of Eberron, like unmasking a terrible counselor or hunting down a cursed artifact that drove someone to kill. The vibe here is full film noir. This book stresses that this style can be gritty and very serious, or it can slide into parody if you're not careful enough. So tone should be agreed on early to match what your players want. Do you want it to be more like Naked Gun or more like Dishonored? The next adventure is called Dragonmark Intrigue. This adventure focuses on the political power games of Eberron Dragonmarked houses, the magical dynasties that control communication, travel, banking, security, and more across Covert. With Galafer's old monarchy long gone, these houses no longer have anyone strong enough to keep them in check, and many believe that if their continent ever unites again, it'll be under the Dragonmark's heir, not a king. A campaign like this plays as a Renaissance-era merchant dynasties fighting for influence, or the book literally says this is kind of like a drama of a political family like The Sopranos or Succession. It's all about scheming, alliances, betrayals, and high-stake politics under Eberron's magical economy. After reading through this, I actually would also add as something that's kind of similar, it reminds me of like the crime families in Gotham City. Like the Penguin would fit right in here. The final adventure is called Morgrave Expeditions. Morgrave University in Sharn is one of Covert's largest centers of learning, and it's also one of the most controversial. Its founder dreamed of shining institutions dedicated to uncovering ancient knowledge, and many students and scholars still chase that idea today. But Morgrave has a darker reputation. Its founder was a notorious treasure hunter, and over the years the university has been tied into artifact smuggling. A Morgrave Expedition campaign plays like a classic pulp action adventure. Think Indiana Jones meets Lara Croft. It's all about daring ruins, ancient secrets, dangerous relics, and the fine line between archaeologist and treasure thief. Our final chapter in this book is on airships and how they operate, information on the overall lore and the areas within. This book dives deep into kind of like what the Spelljammers did on operating a Spelljammer, which I appreciate a lot because it actually dives a lot deeper than those books did. It's kind of disappointed on those last books. Don't tell the wizards that live in the coast. We get a look at the helm, how to repair damages, crashing mechanics of airships, engine information, boarding and driving, and of course air combat. We also get details on two of these airships that you can get in game. The Lyrander air cruiser, which looks like this, stunning art, as well as blueprints for the Strider airship, which is described as an airship built for independent merchants, explorers, and privateers. Weirdly enough, I didn't notice this on my first read. It wasn't until I started writing the script for this video that I did notice this last page here, but we actually get a small section on magic items. Only 9 of them, but they're all steampunk-like, obviously. And out of 9 of them, 7 are uncommon, 1 is common, and 1 is rare. The rare item is called a dazzling weapon, which is kind of like a flashbang installed on the weapon. And the common item is called a manifold tool, which is like a magical wrench. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I plan on making a video soon on themed magic items, and a lot of these items will likely be mentioned and discussed deeper in those videos coming up here, so stay tuned, subscribe, and stuff. And that's it. That's the whole short book. Overall, it's pretty good, actually. There's a lot crammed in here, and it reads very well. I love the overall steampunk style that sticks to each of this chapter here, like the actual look of the book. It looks great, and it's great just to return to Eberron again. I do think it's an expensive book, though. In US dollars, it's 30, which seems like a lot for such a small book. In Canadian dollars, it's a lot more than that, which is where I'm from. I also feel like this maybe could have had expanded to include a little bit more, like a full monster section, maybe some additional returning species, brand new species even. I also am still fully against the Artificer being separate from the other D&D classes. I know it's too late now, but this really should have been in the player's handbook. I don't care that it feels a bit too modern for a fantasy setting. It's cool, man. People like Artificer. People like being a tinker in D&D. At least it's here now, though. I mean, I'm happy that we finally have it in the new editions. I did really like this book. I do wish it had some features that would have expanded it to be a bit more longer, but everything in here is solid. My favorite video game of all time is Dishonored. I also really love the world of BioShock and Fallout, and a lot of those sort of vibes remind me of Eberron. So it's cool to jump into this steampunk-like world that you can bring into your own D&D campaigns. I personally am a dungeon master that prefers to do homebrew worlds, so I'm going to be using this book to kind of just bring into my world. I'm totally okay with airships flying over my fantasy setting. I give Dungeons and Dragons Eberron Forge of the Artificer an 8 out of 10. I think if you plan on bringing some steam to your games or want to play as an artificer, a detective, or someone marked by Dragonmarks, or if you just want to operate an airship because that's super fun, then this book is definitely for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is my third book review on this channel. As more Dungeons & Dragons books release, I plan on making more reviews on them. I collect all these D&D official books here. I like to have them on a shelf, and I use a lot of them just for my homebrew worlds. If you guys like this video, a like helps so much helping this channel grow. As you can see, I'm a very new D&D channel, but I'm growing every single day here. So likes, comments, and subscribes help me so much. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Next is Shifter. Shifters are descendants of lycanthropes who can terminally tap into their bestiality nature. Ooh. Oh, okay.